All right, so guys, thanks for being here. Hopefully everyone's got their food. They're starting to eat. We don't get fed till the end. So, well, we're going to have a great session today. So I want to say thank you guys so much for being here. Anthony, you can hear us in back, correct? We opted not to use a mic. So if you can't hear us, don't be shy. Just speak up. So we're here to talk about cloud computing. I'm just kidding. No, we're here to talk about AI. That's the latest industry trend and buzzword. So my name is Bandzes. I've been at Charles IT for about 14 years now, so I've seen some stuff. I'm going to make sure we're not censored out here. My current role is vCIO, so I help with meeting with our clients, business strategy. I think of it as like a family office approach. So my job is to meet with our strategic and primary business contacts and bridge the right resources either at Charles IT or outside of Charles IT for whatever they may need to propel their business. So obviously AI has been a big topic right now, and I'm joined with the Steves. So we have Steven Saehrig and Steve Joslyn, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So we'll start with you, Steven, and then wait, Steve and Steven.
You got it.
All right,
let's go with it. So Steven Saehrig, I'm the president of Descent IT. My intro is going to be much less impressive than Aaron's, but my role at Descent is to help small businesses realize their advantages, their ability to execute using an AI-first approach, and we use that in our business. So Descent IT was founded with AI at its core and automating our processes on an every single day basis, which we found very successful, which is why I think I'm here, I think. We'll find out.
And I'm Steve Joslyn. I'm Vice President of Operations at Avid Marketing Group. We are I'd say boutique promotion service agency. I'd say boutique, but it's really a pretty mid-size agency here in Rocky Hill. We focus a lot on the beverage alcohol space, so compliance is definitely something that's in our forte, and we use AI to and from that. My role as operations is kind of expanding across multiple disciplines, from our product technology all the way through our back office technology, and I use AI every single day and automate a lot of different things, and I'm happy to share some of my experiences with that.
So yeah, you have a great panel here today. We have a lot of different perspectives. So whether it's ops, again, I think Steven, even underselling like that, born with AI. Your whole company literally started at the inception of AI and lean, and we were nerding out over there talking earlier, and you have some crazy stuff that you're doing. Not to undersell or oversell.
Give it all away.
I know, right? We have to keep some secrets for later. So I guess I want to do a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today, right? So a little bit of it is going to be about the opportunity surrounding AI, but what I don't want this session to be is a generic of kind of like, here's the buzzwords, here's the high level stuff that you could probably see in a commercial or online. I am also going to work really, really hard because the three of us, we can get deep and technical and nerd out, so we don't want to get too technical and in-depth either. So I'm going to try to find that nice balance, but we are going to get into some stuff. Here's what you can expect. So we are going to talk a little bit about the opportunity around AI. We are going to talk predominantly about how it can save time, how it could save money, what other opportunities are out there, and we're going to speak from experience. We're going to look at some of the levers and drivers and the things that are defining this space. A huge component that we do want to talk about as well is the guardrails, meaning the risk. Because I'm sure right now with AI, especially a lot of your employees, they could be saying, I'm using this free version and I'm going out and doing this, and right, so like we want to make sure that you have the right protections in place, or at least here's the things you should be thinking about before you let loose. And then I do want to, we're going to spend a huge time, I wrote it nerd out. That's how I wrote in my notes when I was prepping last night. So I was like, we're literally just going to start talking about use cases of what we've applied. I am going to ask for those who want to share, for you guys, if anyone wants to also offer what you're doing in your business, that'll also give us a sense of where we might tailor some of the conversation. And then we're going to tie it all together and hopefully enjoy the food in the company. So again, thanks for being here, and we'll get started. Quick show of hands, because I told you I'm going to involve you guys. You're not off the hook. Who's actively using AI today in their business? Good. I see you, Ethan. Yeah, raise your hand. So I guess, is anyone interested, I'm going to only pick a few, but is anyone interested in maybe sharing how you are currently using it? Anyone comfortable with that? Or I might pick on Chris Lemon from Charles IT. How are you using AI?
Hey guys, Chris, Charles IT. Using AI today, when I come in the morning, I've got 30 unread emails. I open up Copilot and I say, what's the first one I need to read that requires my attention right away, instead of doing it in the order that they arrive.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share one quick thing about how you're using AI in your business?
The tip of the iceberg, so email generation, crafting, messaging, whether it's on social media, as long as any information is not private or proprietary, I use it to analyze or compare, say, contracts or proposals and things of the sort, but cautious on using it too much because I don't want everything getting out into the ether, specifically if it is sensitive or proprietary.
That's great. Thank you. So I'm going to ask
One more hand up.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Go ahead.
I use it to assist me with writing SQL queries.
Nice.
I'm not a SQL developer, but you can really feed it a lot of data, or a lot of don't feed it the data, but feed it the context of what you want your SQL query to do, and it can give you the queries, but don't feed it the actual data points or the raw data, so that you're not sharing with the whole world, or even just your organization the actual data. But it can really help correlate what that SQL query needs to be.
Yeah. We were actually just talking a little bit about coding. We may not get too in depth on the coding piece today. I want to be careful with that. But we were talking about Claude. We were even talking about vibe coding. People are just writing apps now, and the app stores are being more vigilant about like people popping up with cool ideas, but having them code. But the SQL and some of those database and programming languages absolutely are huge in AI right now. So I'm going to ask a broad question. We're going to get rolling here. But I guess from your own perspective, from your own businesses, where are you seeing it move the needle currently? I told you it'd be a broad question.
I'll go first. So for us, we are seeing scalable growth with even or reduced headcount. So it allows us to think smarter, make better judgments, increase our decision-making velocity. And within that, we have grown our projects by 15% since last year, while actually having a lower headcount by about 10%. So, while there's still, a small delta in between our ROI, we do see that expanding even further. So that's, for us, is definitely more around time savings and quality of output, from our production sides of the house.
So for us, I would say that we've probably doubled our capacity for using AI. If we were gonna, it has, similarly to what you just said, Steve, about it's augmented the capabilities of all of my team members to improve their ability to execute at higher level tasks without me having to hire necessarily a more skilled employee or that somebody with more experience. It's evened the playing field out a bit. So that's prevented some hires that I've had to make. And it's also, like I said, I'm pretty sure doubled our capacity for what a single employee could handle on a daily basis.
I do agree and see it as a time machine, at least from my perspective in my current role at Charles IT. So output, extra capacity, and just, I don't know, keeping things together. I almost want to share what we were talking about in the corner there, Steve, when we were saying, you used the word like Excel and like treating it just as a tool. Personally, and this is a tangent slightly, but like I always felt there was a negative connotation if people saw like I was using AI and they're like, oh, that's AI, he's cheating, or he's like doing this. But that was like a year or so ago.
Yep.
Now, what's the sentiment?
Yeah, for me, I definitely feel as though AI, pick your tool of choice, is part of how we operate. It is part of our job. It is embedded in everything that we're doing, whether that's part of the platforms that you have a license to, or you are actually going out to the AI tools and creating your own license and purchasing that license. But I attribute it to, hey, I was in Excel all day today. You're not going home and saying, man, I really used Excel today, right? Today you say, oh, I used ChatGPT today. Tomorrow you're just going to say, I did my job today. And that's how I really believe AI is moving in that direction, where it is consuming everything that we're doing. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about the guardrails behind that, but that's how I definitely see how it's impacting us today.
Any follow-up to that, or?
I mean, one of the core values that I put in place at Descent was the AI is to augment and not replace people, but also that it should be transparent to your interaction. You should just be working, and AI is augmenting your capabilities throughout the day. You may not even know you're interacting with AI in my company because it is just there doing the job for you. So it's more like the automation of automated. I want to be very clear about automation versus AI. They're not the same thing, but the automation of making the decisions or collecting the information or presenting the relevant information, as Chris was talking about on how he's using email, right? That is just part of the workflow now. And so AI is a core component of everything they do. So they don't really talk about it anymore. They just use it.
You mentioned augment, not replace.
Yeah.
That's current state, right? And we know that technology is advancing exponentially. So is there a growth, is there a time frame where that replacement could be maybe be perceived as more viable in your estimation?
I would say augment, don't replace, in the sense of, if I look at it as adding headcount more than replacing employees. So I think it'll replace jobs, portions of jobs, things that I depended on specific people in the company to do. It would replace those tasks and allow them or free them up to do more things that only we can do. That's where I'm seeing the replace happening, is really, hey, I had to do this every day at 5 a.m. They're not doing that anymore. It's just automated, but it is preventing me from having to add headcount where I don't, when I before would have had to.
Yeah, I have the same sentiment, with us evaluating our processes and finding those ones that are very routine, repeatable, the ones that have, really not a lot of critical thinking behind them. That's where we're seeing the benefits. And when I was saying that, we've had a 10% efficiency gain, in the staffing, that's where we're seeing it. We're now allowing them to do more critical thinking. We're a creative agency as well, so it allows them to be putting on their creative hats a little bit better and more frequently, versus I got to move this, square to this circle type thing. So it definitely, allows them to have that space to think and create and innovate more so.
I actually want to leave some time, because I think that's a great question of where things are going. So a little bit after our nerd out session, I definitely want to nerd out a little bit more on where I think the next 5 to 10 years. I don't even think 10 years is a time horizon we can fathom. Yeah. Let's start with a shorter one, actually, but it'll be interesting, because I can talk a little bit too about what I think is going to happen in the managed services provider space, especially too with like level 1 help desk technicians. I actually think Microsoft is going to modernize level 1 help desk chat and things that can self-heal and solve themselves, somewhat removing like a level 1 bench, but we'll have to see how that evolves, what those jobs and roles are. I guess, what do they say? Crawl, walk, and then run. So I guess where I want to take the conversation is a bit about where to get started. So I know a lot of people raise their hand already, like they are using AI in their workplace, but we were talking earlier about process, people, tools. Like if you were to start thinking about a tool for your business, like how do you even go about identifying where to start?
Sure. Yeah.
I was going to say which one I'm going to go first.
Yeah. So I think for the way I approached it was, what is the problem I'm trying to solve first? What's the process? Do I have a process? One, do I even have this documented, or is it just institutional knowledge? What's the process? What are the tools that enabled me to do that process with the least amount of effort to like move from manually doing it to automated, or to using AI and incorporating it into the process? And then lastly would be the policies and the framework that need to secure and put the guardrails in place. That's kind of my order of execution, is like, you can make policies and you can select every tool. Tools change so fast now. What I'm trying to do and the outcome I'm trying to get out of it is probably the most important question to solve right out of the gate.
Yeah, very similar answer. From my perspective too, and understanding how fast things are changing, to kind of forecast the proactiveness around how we use these tools and the processes that it's helping to kind of govern is super critical. So while we may implement it this way, a week, a month, 6 months, that has to be manicured and massaged. So it's not. We have a saying inside our walls. It's we don't set it and forget it. For those that know the Ronco commercials, that's very familiar. I have a picture of him in my office. So we definitely don't just leave it there and then we're on to something else. If there's someone or something has to be mindful of what's happening.
Yeah, I think the experience and the outcome of what we're trying to do is the most important thing.
Yep.
The tool and the capabilities of tools change so fast. How you do it today could be done totally different tomorrow.
And that's, I know we'll talk about policies in upcoming section, but that's where those
Just
definitely
really want to
come
talk about
critical.
policies.
We do. No.
You're right. I think there is a handout, and I'm not necessarily wanting to distract everybody, but I believe Betta put together a handout in there. If not, we can have a follow-up. It's a high level of like what tool currently, what AI tool, and what it could be good for as far as pros and cons. Like obviously you have Claude, OpenAI, ChatGPT, you have Microsoft Copilot, just to name some of the bigger items. So I do think it's also important when we're going to talk about this next, where I'm taking the conversation is going to be about, we already talked about automation versus AI. What the heck does that mean? And how does that help? But I think that's important because there are some tools that they're always endlessly evolving. I think we just talked about what was the image thing that ChatGPT is removing? Sora,
yeah.
Right? So now ChatGPT went in a whole different direction. Like, sorry, just kidding.
Yeah.
So the tools are always changing, but what are the right tools for the job? So I think just identifying that and what you're looking to get for your business and helps you with the tool selection. So automation and AI, they get blended together a lot, right? And so I think it's, what does that mean to you? Like, what's the difference between automation versus AI? We'll start with Steve.
So for me, AI is something that allows us to have better judgment and decision making, whereas the automation is working in parallel to that to help take processes and do them for us in many ways. How I automate within Avid Marketing is we have systems.
It's the longest door I've ever heard in my life.
It's not that. I'm just excited. Hang out back, for me, we have systems. Systems that do particular things for specific functions within our organization. But at the end of the day, we need all this data to really be, concentric and centralized. So I have a lot of automations that take information from one system, put it into the next, and then I have the ability to report on that. And we'll get into some more, use cases here in a bit. But for me, automation is almost a byproduct of AI in some ways, where I can now automate this process because I have trust in what the AI has accomplished for us.
I think of it as automation for me is something that's about deterministic. A plus B equals C every single time, right? That is an automation candidate, and that does not need AI to do it. It needs a framework to do it safely and repeatably the same way. Where I think it's very interesting and where they merge is when you add an AI local language model or a large language model on top of a process like that, you can really see an enhancement of the quality of the automation and the outputs coming from it, because now we've added the decision-making or the decision-making capabilities to an automation when A plus B doesn't equal C, right? Self-repairing workflows, for example. So I think for me, automation is about repeatability and removing the task of a person doing it, and the AI is the decision, critical thinking component that you were talking about.
Some analysis too. I mean, when I was talking about centralizing all my data, we have the LLM actually understanding and analyzing it based on what we want as output, and it helps us to make more informed decisions based on that information quickly. What used to take days, if not weeks, to create end of Q1 report, for us is now done in minutes. So that's where we're also seeing the time savings on the back office side, and again, thusly allowing us to make more informed decisions.
Yeah, I was just kind of pulling up some definitions, and I would suppose, right, I think from what we were talking about, automation is more rule-based and repetitive, and then AI interprets, generates, and I think we said handles ambiguity, but at the same time, I think it can cause ambiguity. We'll talk a little bit about that. So do you have any quick examples? I know, I want to start to maybe put some real-world use cases there. So like maybe 1 or 2 automations that you've put into place that have really helped your business.
I have one. So, and this one actually blends AI and automation together. Okay. So, in the IT world, we have a lot of facts and data available to us. So if an issue gets automatically found, so a monitor alert goes off on a device that's having a problem, there's a ton of data available to figure out what's going on there. So we use automation to go and get the source data from what the problem is. So I'll use a low disk space alert for a minute because it's a thing I think everybody can relate to. It's pretty easy. A low disk space alert that the monitoring, the automation found, it can go cross-check that with AI and access to say, how long has this problem been happening? How many times has it occurred? How many times has it flagged? What was the resolution the last time it did it? And how long did that take? And if we did that again, will it fix this problem? And it can put all that information into the ticket and present it to an AI model to say, here's all the data we have, here's what's been done, here's how we want to do it going forward, and it can make a recommendation. So a technician doesn't need to decide or go look for those tickets. They can say, oh, Aaron's computer's out of space again. It's happened 12 times in the past 6 months.
That iTunes library.
His iTunes has got to go. And let's make a recommendation or make a different decision this time on how we approach it. So we can put an end to that problem once and for all. That's what we did and we do that on every ticket that comes in the door.
Scenario for us, a few months ago, we started an opportunity to automate some reports for client usage. They were being sent out every 2 weeks. Our team would get a task in our EPM, so Enterprise Project Management software. We had 2 analysts that were working on this, and they would go into our SaaS platform, analytical platform, pull the report, generate a PDF, do their own analysis on insights, create an email, and then send it off. We've automated that entire process from start to finish, where it's getting a task, it goes off, creates the report, it screen scrapes the information on that report, sends it to ChatGPT for some insights, creates the actual email with those insights that have been curated, and then it sends it off to internal usage right now to verify it before we send it off to our clients. So what's used to take 2 resources, half their week, now is they're off to actual doing more insightful, long-term report generation and analysis, where we just have a machine running that is doing this every single day. It runs for an hour in the morning. It costs us a couple $100 each month to do that, and the efficiencies, time savings are, it's proof there. The ROI was I think 4 months for us.
Wow. What platform are you using for that?
So this is actually it's robotic process automation. So we have a virtual machine that's running a workflow that's scraping. Yep.
Did you feed your AI the type of insights that you were looking for?
Correct.
So that,
Yep.
so is it pulling from internal sourcing for the insights? I know the data is internal, but the insights that you're getting, is it referencing other successful pieces of that, or is it going outside?
That is our next phase of this, where we're expanding its insights. So right now it's just looking at the existing report, based on whatever performance data that it's seeing. But now we're training our model to actually look at a unified data model, so that it can garner those insights across a different universe and provide even more scale to those insights.
Yeah, I think insights are an area where you can get some of it from a large language model or AI all by itself. And a lot of it you have to tell it what good looks like. Right. So I have a model that does similar things, where it's using an RPA to go collect all the information, and then it's saying, okay, based on what Descent IT's belief of client healthy network, here are the insights that I gained from this data, and here's the recommendation profile that I would make.
When I'm thinking about AI, I think about the fact that the internet universe, nobody has to have a credential to spin up a website. And the most terrifying reference that I use is that I used to run a support group for people with arthritis. We had 10,000 members, and I don't have a medical degree, but I sell copiers really, really well. And we were getting interviewed by CNN in different places, and we had this little website. You don't want to be pulling medical information from a girl that sells copiers. Like, that's just not the vibe. So I worry when we're going external that it's like a race to the middle rather than a race to great. And so I'm just curious how you get through the race to great.
Yeah, I think for us it's been documenting the institutional knowledge of your organization and making that information available to the AI models and to the tools that you're collecting this data on. That's been, I actually created can I wander for a minute? So,
Wherever direction you want to go.
So I figured, we all, as business leaders, have tons of value that we can provide, or we do provide to our organizations. We have insight, we have human interactions that we have every single day in decision making. And one of the agents I made was recording my phone calls and my conversations with my employees, with my clients, with every interaction I have recorded. And I made an AI agent that analyzes all the content that I'm generating all day long, all these interactions, and it's building a vision platform, a strategic knowledge database, I call it a what would Steve do model, but basically a way to replicate, if an employee were going to come and ask Steve, this AI model would know how I make decisions, and it would know my core values, how I communicate, the tone I use, and it can build that institutional knowledge into an AI model so I don't have to be awake and answering all the questions all the time. But it builds that knowledge source on what value I bring to the world and to my clients or to everybody and my employees to do that.
How do we get access to what would Steve do?
Well, so right now it's internal only. So Steve is only available to my employees, but yeah, we get market.
That's to come. His brain is now turned into an AI.
It is, yeah.
Eric?
Yeah, so I guess you're hitting on a few things, and you kind of mentioned it briefly. I don't know if you caught on to, like, you don't have a process, you can't really automate or, kind of put AI to it first. Like, let's talk about the human. If you can't train a human, you can't train AI type of a situation. Potentially. But I guess one of the things that, like, the key man risk, like what you did is that you just took yourself out of the key man risk of your organization, right, when you're training it. I guess to her point, I don't know her name, but like training, right? Like, you have to train the models, right? You have to train it the way you want. So did you have a process? I know for some people it's about a 30-day process. You have to input X amount of data, and then you put it into production, and then you always have to refine it, right? It's not like, again, the Ronco. No, not a lot of people know that anymore.
So, yeah.
I just displayed my age.
Yeah, I remember it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess just going a little bit more about that, like training it, but also maybe how to train employees to that, because I think that like there's the gap, or at least what I'm seeing is that actually training people to even use AI and see how it does, because I've given access to people who are in their 30s, I've given access to people in their 40s and their 50s. And they could all look at me and say, how do I use it?
Yeah.
And then to me, who's been using it for day one, it's like, how cannot you use it?
Yeah.
You can actually, so I've been playing a lot with certain agents and bots. So at Charles IT, we're sticking, we've bounced around a few times between OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Copilot. From an account management perspective, we do something called reconciliation reports. And I know I'm on the record here now giving some secret sauce about Charles IT, but we have clients in hourly agreements. And what's really important to Charles IT is that we're always billing for things of when it's a technical nature. We don't bill for phone calls. We don't bill for adding licenses to your account that takes 2 seconds, right? So humans make mistakes. So sometimes if a technician codes that incorrectly and we've accidentally billed a client, when the client's hours get to a certain amount, it kicks off a few auditing thresholds where we do something called a reconciliation. And our account managers literally, like I remember almost like a teacher at school, I would print out 6 months worth of time entries and I'd have a highlighter and I'd be sitting on my couch watching TV being like, we shouldn't have billed for that. Like, getting mad actually. I'm like, why can't we do this right? So we would would, I've trained an agent in Copilot to pull from a central place where all our time entries are, so internal to Charles IT's ecosystem, right? And I said, help me find kind of like in a law firm, they bill at like 20.25, 15-minute increments. So I'm like, find me all the .03s, the .07s that are billable, and like it's able to read the text notes and the sentiment, and like it's able to do a first pass and find out something that would take me hours at night sitting on the couch. It now does in 30 seconds. So I built a bot called Recon Bot, but as I'm training it, I would then have to go through, and it's important with AI that you give AI feedback. So as I'm interacting with it, I'm like, no, you did that wrong. Remember that next time, or edit, I even have sometimes I go through a whole project in Copilot and I'm making these projects and I'm basically, okay, write your own agent now. I need you to replicate this consistently every single time. Can you write me the prompts that I need to now just copy and paste? It basically does it for you, puts it in there, and then I train it and I edit it. The training of the employee part on how to use it, now that I've published it in the organization, and mind you, I'm talking high level here just to help keep the conversation moving. We have an internal standard operating procedure library, and I had the agent pretend I'm an account manager, I'm not technical, how do I run Recon Bot? And it wrote me an SOP on how to run itself, and then I just published it, and I said to all the account managers, go use this, right? And then they beat it up, they gave me feedback, and we've refined it ever since. So it just started as a use case, and that's kind of where I was gonna take the conversation next, was just finding those things to automate. Like, I think people get a bit analysis paralysis when they're like, what are all the AI is out there and it could definitely help me in my business, but I just don't know where to start. So I might actually, that'll be my next panel question. And I don't know, I want to make sure though, Eric, if that was helpful at all, but.
We're hitting on, like, you said AIs need feedback. Well, so do humans, right? So like, hey, I gave you this task, you did it wrong. How did you do it wrong? This is, kind of a situation. Obviously, in humans, we're not always good at accepting or giving feedback, so that's another, separate thing. AI just kind of sees through that, so that's good. So you are hitting on it, on that. I guess a little bit to that, I mean, you may get to it, is like, you made that, right? That was a top-down kind of approach. You're an IT company and so forth, but it's hard to say, go to tell a lot of my admin to say, go start using it and have it do your job. Yeah. And I think that we're running into a scenario where we're going to people where it's like, I'm looking at what you do and I know I can automate it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think sorry, but it's like, more, it's like, do I give you the opportunity for you to do it and then you become the person that helps do other people, or do we just do it and then deal with that consequence?
Let's talk that through. Yeah.
I took the approach of the I'm doing it. Like, we're doing it. I'm not asking you. A little bit different, right? You're an IT company. Well, no, I think even inside of my company, like there are roles inside the company that do not need to use as much AI. But the parts where I want AI enforced and used, so that I can have a consistent workflow, a consistent product, vibe, feel, whatever you want to call it, is augmenting their like. An admin doesn't get a choice on whether they're going to use AI. The AI does it for them and then presents them the result. I'm injecting the prompt for them, right? We had a meeting, it was recorded, here is the summary, here is the follow-up email already drafted for you. Does this align to what you want to send out or not? That's the decision that the human needs to make now. Because all the work of recapping the notes and building the email and all that stuff is all done. It's a very simple example.
Does this go back to where finance and accounting needs to use Excel to do their job? You're dictating that they need to use the AI because that's now their role?
Yeah. I mean, I'm dictating it. Like, I give them the tools, I give them the training, I give them the opportunity. But when it's critically essential to the business to operate with AI to do it so that we can scale and leverage that tool, I just make it transparent and part of the process. It is part of the workflow. You get injected, your job in this workflow moved from A to C, because A and B have been taken care of.
Steve, I was going to say, because we're getting picked on as MSP IT, so I think we'd love to hear from...
It's huge. Yeah. Marketing people, like, you guys got wrecked with it.
Well, for sure. So that's where, like, our risk profile is a little different, right? Because all these tools can create things, and, clients are now seeing M dashes in their copy and all this stuff, right? So I looked at it as a proactive implementation to really control which tools our staff had the ability to use. So anyone can go on, ChatGPT.com and fire in things. I worry about our compliance. I don't know, Plotner's not in here, so but shout out to Plotner. I don't want my staff, putting in Excel documents or our consumer PII into these things, right? And so I looked at it as, okay, I have risk here and a vulnerability. I'm going to try and control this. I fully embrace AI. I fully embrace, all the tools that are out there, but I wanted to make it specific and approve certain tools. So that's where we get into the policies again. Not to, keep using that word, but it's important. So what I did was, for certain teams, you have access to these tools. For the broadened company, and we're about 70 people, you have access to Copilot. It's in Teams, it's in Outlook. So we had just an engagement kind of meeting, all company, recorded. So this is what Copilot is, and this is how you train it to benefit you. These are the things that I wanted them to ask it so that it could, kind of start learning of that person and their characteristics and how they want their emails to be, crafted with that tone. So that's how I kind of engaged our teams to start using it in a, as much as I can control it manner. Now, if people are still going out to ChatGPT and throwing, something in there and crafting it and using it, I really can't control that right now. But I can't control it against our policies. So if it is, something that becomes a little bit more malicious or there's an issue, I now have something to, hold back on. But that's how I really looked at implementing these tools, within our organization. And it is very department specific because not all the tools do what we need to in a marketing company. So that's why it's very critical that we were focused on the what and how and the approvals.
To go back maybe to what Eric was saying, because obviously our roles at our companies are a bit where we can have the luxury of dictating some of what tools they can and cannot use. But so if I am an employee, and this is going to tie into, I think, how do you get started in thinking of things that you can automate or use AI for? So I am maybe someone who's at the front lines and I'm thinking about using AI. I was given Copilot. Let's just be a Microsoft house for a minute, just so the recording sees that. So Copilot, right? So you've given Copilot to your organization. Let's just say, because we're going to talk about it next, I know everyone is anticipating it, guardrails and bumpers and risks. We got all that figured out. The policies are written. So how would a frontline person start to figure out how can AI help them, and how do you empower them to brainstorm things that'll save you and them?
Yeah, so very similar, context. Based on each department, we kind of crafted some use cases for them to start, right? We have project managers that are engaging with our clients. We have account managers that are engaging with our clients. There's certain nuances to those clients' behaviors that our account team should, really know. I'm looking at my account manager over there. He's very consistent, so I assume Copilot's, talking to me. So that's where I look at, making sure that our staff has the ability to understand, the day-to-day and how this tool can help them become more efficient. And I really aligned on them with, we're giving you this opportunity to have a new Excel or a new Outlook, tool to allow more time for critical thinking. I have an issue. How do I actually resolve that issue and apply it so that it's going to be fixed right the first time versus, I got to get to all these other tasks that are, out there. Now they can push those tasks, have Copilot run a summary or email generation of, these 5 emails I have to get out while they can deal with that issue in parallel.
I have a little bit of joking, but seriously, this is what I said to my employees to get them to use AI. Who you would think in a technology area, they would be chomping at the bit to do it. That's not true for everyone. So what I said is my mission in life right now is to be able for you to do your job, but sitting on a beach, drinking a Mai Tai, not looking at your computer.
That's a vision everyone can get behind.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
AI can do everything. It can't do a lot of things. Know, like, and trust genuine human connection is not where AI is going to be, right? Mm-hmm. So I want you to be that person to my customers. I do not want you worrying about, did this task execute correctly, because AI can do that, and it can even be automatically checked behind the scenes. So if you have the vision of sitting on a beach, what would you use AI to do your job right now with? That motivated them, because I was serious, go work on a beach.
Themselves out of their job?
Huh?
Or has anybody put themselves out of their job
Nah, they just evolves.
How many of your employees are at the beach right now?
Couple of them.
And are you hired?
I don't want to put Caitlin on the spot, but I think she has a really great example to speak to your question from a non-technical person who was like, I don't have the use for AI because I don't write anything and I don't know how I was going to use it. Foster found a tool. He's a digital explorer. He's an AI explorer.
That's very polite.
And he came, yeah.
Love you, Foster.
And he was Descript the first tool that he brought you, or was it a different one for the podcast? It was an issue with transcribing larger video files.
Yeah.
And time stamping. It was specific to video work, and it was a specific tool that solved a specific problem. And from there, you started using different tools after that. But it was like, find the first tool, have someone work with you, and it was like the first thing I did was timesheet review, and I created a bot. I didn't even know I was creating a bot. I didn't know that was what I was doing, but it was to do timesheet review. And honestly, best thing I ever did. And from there, I was like, ooh, let me create this one, and let me create this one. And after we did the first thing, everything else kind of fell into place. And we're non-technical.
And I think I go through more of I'm going to say it like the piss off factor, because if people know me in Charles IT's organization, I do not like my time wasted. I am very type A. I like to be efficient. Like, why am I in this meeting if it could have been an email? So I am typically creating bots or AI because I see things that are what I perceive as wasting my time and try to just automate it and use AI. So I'm more of the approach of like, I'm inventing things on the fly because I'm working with AI all the time now as a tool like Excel, right? And I'm doing, I build out certain projects, for example, for all my clients within our internal ecosystem, so it's not going out of Office 365, but it'll remember certain meetings. And the more you link meetings and facts and info within SharePoint and environments, it learns. But I work with a contractor, and he invoices me through QuickBooks, and I would have to put it as an expense in our ticket, then redirect that as a product to then pass through to bill the client. I would have to charge my Charles IT credit card, and then I would have to put a reason code in Ramp. Not another shameless plug, but Ramp is a great expense product if anyone's not using it. We have a referral code. But that took me hours, and I dreaded, because I need this contractor, I rely on this contractor, but I hated the fact that every month I would have to spend my precious time reconciling his invoices, where they get allocated to. So put the ticket number that he's helping me on in his invoice, and now I built a bot through a lot of trial and error where I just drag and drop the QuickBooks PDF, and it automatically outputs what I need to copy and paste into all of those segments. And now it immediately then does it through the recon bot to like make sure the time's not being wasted. And so it's just the point I'm getting to is just I sit down and I think of stuff that just I hate doing, and that gives me a lot of time. I wrote a bot, and we're getting out into the nerd out section for a second. Then I'm going to have because I had two nerdy opportunities. You can have two. I want to talk about like emails and marketing, and like, because I am also really good. I also can be really wordy, but I've really helped from being at Charles IT as long as I have and working with Foster, evoking the communication style that Charles IT is, right? So I'll write nice emails, pretty bullet points, nice blue headers that match our brand standards, right, Betta? Which you can feed AI your brand standards PDF. And so now what I've done is, because I'm trying to train our entry-level account managers on how to evoke that, right? I met with a client and they have 6 projects going on. They got a bunch of service tickets, and there's certain things that were on fire that week. So I do a State of the Union email at the start of the week for a high-touch client, and I'm like, this is what's going on in your world, right? But I'm able to now evoke how I fed it all the historical emails that took me an hour or so to make by hand. I fed it all the ticket notes and info, and I'm trying to have our account managers be able to benefit from that and be like, how would Aaron write this? So one, I just say now write this email for me, and it does it exactly as I would have done it, but I can also use that to now train I can have an account manager now take that email, paste in their version, and it can give them feedback and coaching, being like, well, maybe this is too hard to follow. You're writing to a C-level executive. They don't need all this detail. You just need to tell them, is it on track or not? So I find things that are like coaching and mentoring opportunities, or things that I don't like doing that suck up my time, so I can get back to coaching and mentoring my team. I'll stop for a second, because as you may know, we can probably talk for days about things we've done, but do you have any other kind of quick hit examples on either AI, automation, or how would you approach?
I mean, I use the same approach that you're talking about. Like, I started with the things I don't like doing, and the things that are easy to do, because I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in like quick wins, right? So I don't need to boil the ocean and try and automate my entire business. I need to automate this one task that is frustrating, and then take that and leverage that to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And when you compare that or combine that with a AI adoption kind of mentality in the organization, I think that helps to bring people along to the fact that, like, this isn't smoke and mirrors. It can do a lot. Here's what I've done. Like, it's a win. Here's another win. Here's another win. And they start to build trust in that it can actually be done. I think that's an area where organizations struggle a lot, is AI adoption, like what you're talking about, Eric. I just started proving it. Like, I don't, I've worked on a couple projects recently, but the one that was nearest to my heart was also in the like invoice reconciliation area, where I get hundreds of invoices, and there's a lot of data inside of our PSA or our ticketing system where all this stuff is. Well, go out, grab the invoice, compare it to what we're actually billing for. Does it apply to our standard billing model that I've had to define for it, of what a good bill looks like or a good invoice looks like? Did we misbill any time in the system? And then it automates all that stuff, and I did it in a agent, sub-agent, minor. So I have like an orchestrator, I have like a billing manager agent that knows all the rules and knows how to communicate. And then I have agents that are agreement billing agent, a project billing agent, invoice reconciliation agent, and they do their jobs. And I call her Angie. Angie goes out and tells Abby and Billy and Johnny, go do the invoicing for Steve because he hates doing it. And I think that one took the longest for me to automate. It was a few months, because there are so many rules that go along with invoicing and reconciliation that it really took a lot of time, but it was very valuable in building a repeatable engine for invoice reconciliation, and making sure that I'm comfortable that that people aren't overbilling or underbilling or missing things. Like, it's very detail oriented when you give an agent access to data.
Correctly, we're actually getting to that very soon.
What's that?
I said correctly, giving it
Correctly.
access correctly.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question on how you name your agents, but we're going to get to that maybe later for the Q&A. Any follow-up, Steve, on your end, or what's your approach?
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, we have a problem statement, and we're trying to figure out a solution to it. So, start small, get big, and that's like, my little box there is really around where we are with our AI adoption, and it's become a very iterative, process for us. So, like, for instance, we're doing a refresh on one of our SaaS platforms, and we've had a couple opportunities for our UI UX resource to come up with some concepts. Our product manager of the platform actually did some vibe coding and made a clickable proof of concept for us that we can see page over page drop downs, reports kind of click in and refresh, and it's amazing. And that was done in mere hours, whereas that would have taken weeks. And so that's where we're, again, the email crafting, make me a new meme, that's great and all, but like the power behind it from a business perspective is there. And it's just a matter of trying to understand what that problem is and be resourceful. It's not going to be perfect the right time or the first time, so you have to keep kind of poking at it. It's a college try kind of approach
sometimes.
Yep, exactly.
So hopefully that was helpful. What we were talking about was more of the inspiration, the genesis, and I think no matter what level you're at, empowering your team to think about what they could use for the AI tools that you give them. I mean, I know, like, recapping, like time saving, money making. Those are usually the categories that you want to think about it in. But so hopefully that helped. We're going to have time for, does anyone have any follow-up questions that they want to ask just based off that conversation? If not, we will also have plenty of time for questions after. Chris?
We've heard.
Are you going to ask me about the account management bots?
You guys aren't getting rid of any account now. What are some really good examples of specific workflows that you've automated or brought AI into effect for? Or even specific workflows that are triggered based on events such as meetings or anything like that? Do you have any advice for us on how we could maybe automate our prioritization? What is the next task I could be working on? Where should I be paying attention? Outside of maybe a laser focused task, but can I automate my entire day, for example?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You pretty much can. I mean, I was gonna talk about this in the nerd out section, but I'm doing a project literally right now. I have an AI agent that is coding a metrics dashboard and AI analysis to look at the last 3 years worth of data, sales data for a company, and say, why am I losing money? How could I make more money? What is the trend in this pattern? Because that's a lot of data points. So 3 years worth of financial data, right? And it's building the dashboard right now to kind of what Steve was talking about of I don't know how to code a web page or like a AI analysis page, but I gave it the outcomes, the rules, and the framework and the guardrails that we're going to talk about soon to go and autonomously build this, mock-up so that the client can very quickly see their data, understand the patterns, and have trending information out of their financials within a few minutes. I think something that they were spending, I think they quoted to me that they were spending about 20 hours a week building these metrics, and in 4 hours I've automated 95% of it. So there's so many things. I think you could automate your entire day. What I was going to say that I think is really important is it's better to do the quick win stuff and individual task stuff, because to get that done is relatively short pain to get through, to get it done. And I say pain is probably the wrong word. Effort. To get that last 20% of fully autonomous is a lot of work. And I have a couple examples we'll talk about later of how we've seen that manifest.
Has anyone ever vented to an AI? Okay. I mean, this is going to go back to planning your day. You don't need an agent. You don't need someone to write you code or automate it. But definitely if it's in your ecosystem, it has access to some of your emails. And does anyone actually follow EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, right? So you might know what IDSO is, or in your L10. So if you feed some of that context to it, there's often times where, you ever have that moment you read a client email or you sat in a meeting and you're just everyone has that little tick of okay, I need a minute, right? So there are times where I've used it for planning my day, which I'll get to, where I use it for IDSO all the time. I'll take an email, I'll take a service ticket that went off the rails, I'll feed it to it, because you have to be thoughtful. You have to think about the issue, the discussion, the solution. It does a good job, but the more you train it, but usually I'm okay, I have this, give me a root cause analysis, here's all the info, help me formulate this into an IDSO. Now I've trained it personally, here's what I expect out of an IDSO, here's a good IDSO, so that's a time saver for me. So as a leader or an executive in the company, I'm often just using it as a shortcut to help digest my thoughts. There are times where I rant to ChatGPT about how I'm feeling. I'll write an angry email. You guys are getting a sense. I'm telling you, I don't know what errand's coming out in today's panel. I've had a week. But I'll write emails that I want to write to an employee, a client, or an individual, but then I say, you know what, write this in a more calm manner, right? Or just help me make this so it's not emotional. Help me make this, I wear my heart on my sleeve, right? So between IDSO, so those, Chris, I've also at times where I have high stress, I feed it all the things that are stressing me out, right? And you remember, you can, especially with ChatGPT, you can talk to it. So if you do it in the conversation mode, sometimes in the car, driving into work in the morning safely through Bluetooth, I can be like, here's all the stuff that I got going on today, right? And we use tools at Charles IT like the Eisenhower matrix to help with your prioritization of like what should get done. So AI is very well there to help you prioritize your day. You said you come in after a weekend and have it read your emails. I have it do the same, and I would say, give me emails that have a high sentiment or like a high, not anger, but like priority sentiment, or people are like on edge or things like that, so it can help bubble up the things that I need to go tackle first, right? So there's definitely, without needing an agent, needing a bot, those are just like organizational things that AI can do out of the box for you. You have to work with it a few times and then train it to your preference and say, no, I did not like that you output that. Next time, this is what I'm looking for. And then once you start to get it and it learns from you, I don't even have to prompt it sometimes. I give it a root cause analysis and it's like, would you like an IDSO for this? And I was like, yes, I would. All right, so I know we went into a bit of the nerd out session, but those are examples where I think you can empower yourself or your team on how to do those things. I think now might be a good time to get into risk and governance, because if you're gonna let these tools loose in your organization, what do you need to know as a business owner to, we use the term guardrails. I think, Steve, you were talking a little about policy. Raise your hand if you have an AI policy at your company. That's great. That's actually very good. Yeah. What are some guardrails? Let's talk techie for a second, right? You just let Copilot loose in your company. Now what? Where would you start? What would you tell business owners they need to do to start protecting that data, or how to, police it a little bit?
I mean, for our side, we're highly compliant with PII, so we don't want any consumer PII, business PII, unless it's an approved source or a resource, like the business owner, even I guess tertiary myself, in some ways to help analyze some information, but we definitely don't allow our staff to put sensitive data into the tools. Also, when you're setting up the tools, it's important that you have it kind of in its closed environment so that it's not sharing that information theoretically unbeknownst to most users, right? There is a setting there that you don't want that information to be allowed to be trained against. So that's where we are just very adamant about its usage and the data that's being put into it. And then we went down, as I mentioned earlier, another line of these are the tools that are approved to use. So just like some companies have approved software, we have approved AI tools, because that's how I look at these as just another piece of software in our ecosystem, thusly to help get jobs done. So definitely want to, point out that it is critical that the staff actually understands that, especially on the scale of, I don't know, one person, okay, great, like you're under your own control, but when you have masses, right, things can get unwieldy pretty quickly. So that's why having these policies in place is something that's important to me, as an executive in this company, to make sure that my staff is operating as how we need them to, within that safe space and those guardrails.
So I look at it in a few different ways. So one is the policy itself of like what we're going to commit to as an organization, what tools we're going to use. And then I also look at it from a technical guardrails perspective. What is the tool? What is the security that tool provides inherently by partnering with that AI vendor? OpenAI has their stuff, Anthropic has their stuff, Microsoft has theirs. And I think understanding what they do with the data and how they store the data, how they purge the data is really important. So like a technical safeguard and understanding my risk. I know from interactions with people and with many people on AI that if you're not providing AI tools to your employees that are inside your control, inside your guardrails, inside your policies, your employees are using AI outside of those guardrails. They're just gonna do it because they don't understand necessarily that putting in that PDF that contained information into ChatGPT on the free site is not the same thing as putting it into your enterprise plan where you have agreed security and retention policies. So I put technical guardrails in place, both in the partners that we partner with and the tools and how they interact. So we will define as an organization the technical guardrails of when an employee is using AI, these are the things you can do and cannot do. And if it violates the policy, it will not do it because it has a rule set that it's following to prevent that from happening.
So you're saying you feed your AI policy and saying this is what save my employees from themselves?
Yes, but in a way that it takes that policy and it makes a version that AI understands from it, basically. So it makes a version that it reads quickly, it checks, it's called a pre-tool use, so it will say a user is prompting me for something. Here is how I'm supposed to behave when a user prompts me for something. These are my rules that I have to follow all the time. Before it does anything else, it makes sure it reads the rules.
Where do you configure that?
It's configured at depending on the tool. For Anthropic, what we use, it's configured at the team plan setting. So like we can configure the organizational policies that get pushed to all employees automatically.
A question from Anthony.
So Anthropic's been in the news recently because the president said stop use, not allowed in the government space. It's interesting because now it's starting to bring into play of where's trust. Where's trust in AI? That tool's not allowed to be used in the government space. That's interesting. Yeah. Then you have CMMC rules that might apply in different ways too. But it's very interesting as we navigate this because I feel like there's different companies depending on their regulatory piece, and you're saying train it to your policy. The government can't train it to their policy though, so that one's a little interesting to take as another takeaway. But how do you train it to do exactly that, to build that trust? Because you're building AI, it's the open internet, right? Open to everything that's kind of there in the world of how it's being popularized, I guess you could say, is like how it's being kind of like Wikipedia. Everyone's kind of putting information in it, it's learning as it goes. Yeah. How does it do that internally? Because I know that there's pockets of government-only type AI capabilities, which are much different than the way the commercial world uses it as well. So there's nuance to it, but I'm curious to see how that expansion.
I work heavily in CMMC and government and defense contracting businesses in Charles IT's world. So Copilot has recently been able and is now available within GCC High, which is a US-based tenant. Only US employees access it. So it's Office 365 for government contractors that's based here in the United States, so no foreign nationals have access to it. So that's important too, I think, Anthony, where it's very similar in terms of controls because I'm visualizing the dashboard in my head on the Office 365 tenant because there are things where, and this goes back into what are some of the guardrails that we would look to put into place, whether you're a government contractor, whether you're in commercial Office 365. So once you're starting to build that policy and say, here's the parameters, having internally, there's clients in our GCC that use data classification. So if there's things like CUI or FCI, so sensitive information, you could even reference that back into Steve's world with PII. Any information. So if you have data classification, Office 365, I'm going to use an example outside of AI. You have data loss prevention is already features that existed where, say, for example, an employee uploaded a spreadsheet that had social security numbers in it and they were sending it as an email somewhere, right? You can have it, Office 365 without AI was already designed to intercept that, block it, notify somebody, make sure to save a human from doing that, right? So there's very similar settings in these dashboards and how you can configure AI to behave specifically to an Office 365's approved GCC High infrastructure and commercial. It can understand as long as you're having those other components of Office 365 tying into it. So if you're using data classification, if you're using data loss prevention policies, there's obviously great best practices and audits already in place in order to put those guardrails up. So I think those are examples that I'm trying to tie in here where you do want to make sure you have that in place before you let loose AI into your organization. Another part of it was like, how do you stop an employee? Because I was writing here, like companies are either using AI or they're avoiding it, but they may not have guardrails, or I wrote, because we were joking about it, or employees are just secretly using it anyway, right? So like, how do you keep employees from secretly using it anyway? Any thoughts? That's a loaded question, I understand, right? So, but there's going to be a few facets, I think, that cover that.
For me, I just fall back on the policy, right? If I know about it, then is it detrimental to the business? That's a personnel question, right? And answer. If it's something that, hey, we need to repivot them, they didn't know or forget that they have to use a certain tool, that's, again, just kind of retraining, but it kind of depends on the sensitivity that was, being used there, so.
I think it comes down to risk too. So I think, there's a few different ways to do it. So one, I give the tool to all my employees. So like, don't use the free version. I'm paying for you. Like, use it. I don't care if you use it personally or, and I mean, you're going to use it for work because it's part of your job. But you want to question it about buying a car? Go ahead. I don't care. It's the same cost every month. So I'll give them the tool. I think that there are technical safeguards even inside your organization, similar to DLP that you're talking about. There are ways to block access to those tools from within your own corporate devices, your networks, and that kind of stuff. Nothing's going to stop them from going on their cell phone and doing their own personal computer. So there's a level of trust. I think it comes down to give them the tool so that they don't use the free tool. Have the policies to support it.
Yep.
Best case scenario technical safeguards that you can put in place.
Right.
And then lastly is accountability. When they don't follow the rules, you gotta do something about it.
Roy was first, and we're going to go to bed. Good to see you, Roy. How you doing?
Stop. Can you shed some light on cyber insurance and cyber insurance policies regarding AI?
I already did that lunch and learn back last fall. That's a great question. So you're saying cyber insurance surrounding AI?
Yeah. Whether it's a rider, whether it's a certain separate umbrella, how is it being covered or addressed by it?
Do you think we have some insurance company representatives here today? So I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in. I can tell you that cyber liability insurance, definitely, I think, from that panel, we did talk a little bit about AI and making sure, I wouldn't think it out of the realm of possibility that insurance companies, how you get that question, are you doing phishing training? Do you have SIM? They're probably now asking, and I think they are, I've seen it where in questionnaires, do you have an AI policy? All right, how are you making sure that your data is safe? So I think a lot of the insurance coverage and questionnaires are also now going to encompass AI specific questions to make sure that the policy they're writing for your business to protect you, their interests are protected, but making sure you're not being silly by, not asking those certain controls and governances. So at least that's what I have seen. Clients sometimes send to me their insurance questionnaires. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll fill it out from an IT perspective. There are questions in there specifically about AI that I have seen. I don't know if that answers your question.
Probably, because I just talked to Derek about this.
Okay, yeah.
Actually.
Yep.
And it's along the same lines as a lot of the compliances where there's nothing formal right now because it's such a new topic, a new thing that companies are addressing, but it's definitely anticipated to be something that is more formalized coming up. So I think to your point, organizations are starting to see it show up just as like a preemptive right now, and then anticipating it being more formalized. So having the policies written, putting things in place now, just so that, when inevitably the time comes that it does show up in a more formal way, it's not a surprise and there aren't so many changes that are coming up. But at least that was what they were talking about in the CMMC conference that Michael Plotner went to, and then also reflecting on the insurance side, I think.
So as of today, if a data leak happens or damages occur because of AI leak, there's nothing covering it from an insurance perspective.
I don't know if I'm the right person to speak to on that, because I could definitely get some follow-up on that, but that would be interesting, right? And what I think the scenario you're describing is if OpenAI all of a sudden, revealed all the searches or some of the data that it was fed contextually, and then that got out into the internet. That's what you're describing?
Or even just an employee thought they were using the company-provided licensed version. They weren't. They were on a separate version. They accidentally pointed it to a folder that had way more information and PII and everything else, and somehow that, worst case scenario, but that's what insurance is for.
And I think that would be like, right, I'm going to use a similar scenario outside of AI where maybe an employee took a spreadsheet of certain company info and put it in their Google Drive, and that got hacked or lost, right?
That would be covered.
So I feel like you could draw parallels, and I'm only speculating here, right, where it would fall similar lines of where your company policy is probably really important to dictate that behavior for that exact reason, because at least they signed an acceptable use policy saying that they weren't supposed to be doing this anyway. They're using a free version that somehow got out. And I think as a business, that would be a way I would at least first start approaching it.
We're a personal injury firm, so the people I report to are very cautious.
Yeah. Yep.
Everything. So.
I have an unrelated question to that, though.
Yeah.
What is the discussion around, I know we talked about using non-enterprise AI tools. What about the personal recording devices, like the Plods and all of that, the wearable, the AI wearables?
I knew this was going to come up, so I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
How does that, is that something that you would recommend writing into policy? How that's allowed, when those are allowed, when they're not allowed in certain rooms? Like, how does that come into play?
So it's interesting. So is everyone familiar with those devices? Or like, have you seen, raise your hand if you've seen someone walking around with this little thing clipped to them that's recording all the time. I know people, it's not me personally, so not calling anyone out, it's okay if you do it, but anyway, so they do have these devices, they fit in your wallet, they can listen onto your phone calls, they just track every aspect of your day. I know certain CEOs that wear them, and that at the end of the day it gives them a digest of here's all the things you spoke about, promised, discussed, right, and just to make sure there's things there. So, Betta, that's like, yeah, they're listening all the time. I think it's a bit scary because that's the world we live in now where things are just recording, right? Camera, there's a camera right over there. I can see it, right? There's cameras, audio, visual. Some may say that your phones put up marketing ads when I don't know if you're going to give any insight to that, Steve, but like when you're saying certain things, you're not getting ads for that as a product. But so talking about those everyday wearables that are meant to be time savers, that are meant to help you be more productive at your job. I think too, yeah, writing in, and I'm like I said, I'm not an expert in the space of what it comes down to the policy piece, but from what, same as like recording, and because like you would have a policy in your workplace about the use of recording devices, use of audio and video recording, at least from an employer perspective, right? Like Charles IT, we do have cameras within it because we have to be compliant for government contractors, so we have to server room doors, so we do have a policy about it. I think it would be interesting, and I would definitely be working into an AI policy if those devices are allowed or not, or if there's certain consent that's needed. I'm sure you'll even see it legislatively, right? Connecticut has a law where there has to be a two-way notification for just recording a phone call, right? But I don't see anything out there about wearing these devices in public and what can govern that or not. So I think that's still I don't know if you guys have anything to add or you might want to share, but that's a great question. I just don't know if everyone's really nailed or figured that out. But
I use it.
Yeah,
there's
nothing wrong with it, by the way. It's just it's not for everybody.
Yeah. That's right. That's the best way to get it.
Where is that? Where
so
does
you
that
could summarize this
information
thing
go? And is it stored securely? Especially if you're talking about whether it's classified information or personally identifiable information.
Well, I think you have to be very specific about the conversation you're having, right? So if I'm going into a conversation that has compliance requirements, it's not going to record. We're not recording that meeting, right? Because there are rules around CMMC of how that data is processed.
And there's clients that I walk into where you have to check your phone in a locked box and you don't get it back till you leave premises, right? And so there's metal detectors and stuff in certain high compliance environments where I'm sure that would get caught. But
so I think of it as like, I think of a lot of things in like above the waterline, below the waterline decisions. And it comes down to wearing that personal device. So an example of where it worked really well is like when I'm on site planning a project and I'm talking to the customer and walking through a facility and taking pictures, that's all being recorded. It's now into a timeline. I have a great context to go and build a project that's accurate to what I'm trying to do. And if anybody has questions, they don't have to go off of my memory. They can go off of the entire recording with all the photos and the audio conversation around that photo. So I think that's a really great use case. There are areas where you just have to turn it off. And that's whenever there's compliance concerns.
Yeah, similar thought. I mean, I feel it's no different than if I'm in a important meeting. I wouldn't expect someone to walk in with this camera and start recording. So I would just politely say, not today, and move on. But I do think, to Aaron's point, if it is something of concern, it does need to go into the policy, and that's how you address it and manage it.
No, I had a thought where I wanted to go with that, but I also don't know if Monica's going to yell at me soon for time. I want to recap kind of where we've gone, and I definitely want to leave the remaining time to do some more Q&A. I would love if you guys have questions. I also want to hear a little bit from you guys if there are any pet projects or things that you're doing for your business that you think would inspire others on where to get started in their AI journey. So I definitely want to maybe leave it for some nerd out time. What I mean by that is maybe maybe just sharing some examples of where you've used AI to save time, save money, or make money, or all the above. And we can just spend some time maybe talking that through. So really where I think we started the conversation today was just looking for opportunities where you're selecting the tool set, what are some configuration or considerations that you need. So we were looking at like levers, drivers, and defining that. We did finally get to the conversation about guardrails and risk, which I think was really important, right? Because you absolutely need to have certain protections in your business, certain technical controls, and policies written about this in this space that's endlessly changing, endlessly evolving. So I think we could talk a little bit either about what's next, because that was something we talked about earlier, like what's the future hold and what we're seeing going, that we could keep into the nerd out format. Do you guys have any preference also, asking the audience, anything you want to make sure you came here for a reason? I want to make sure, are you getting what you want out of this session?
Hi, I'm curious, we talked a lot about use cases and you shared some of your own use cases and all of it makes complete sense, and so we have the buy-in and we're prepared. I guess you talk a lot about, I tell it, I train it, I created it. How do we find the it? Like, what do we know?
Who is this it?
What you want it to do. You figured out your use case, figured out the problem you want it to solve for you, the time you want it to give back to you, but how do you go about finding the right tool or building the right tool if it's determined that you need your own? You know what I mean? Like, do we hire one of y'all to give us that advice? Is there things that we should be searching for or considering when looking at tools?
Question. Anyone want to take that first?
Yeah, I mean,
that's a fantastic question.
So I'll hold it.
And I do have thoughts.
I thought maybe it was a stupid question.
No.
there's a lot of, every AI model has its strengths and weaknesses. So I think I'll share what I did. Okay, so when I founded Descent and we started building and knowing AI is going to be core to everything and robotic process core to everything, right? So I just picked one, honestly. I was like, we're going to try Copilot. What does it do? What does it do well? And we did I would say I did like a mini evaluation period, and I say mini because I'm move fast, like with this stuff. The tools change so fast, you have to move fast. So tried Copilot, tried OpenAI, tried Anthropic. Anthropic produced the best results for the workflows that I was feeding it. And so that was the model we standardized from and started building from there. Because it was input, output, effort to get to the result. Okay, great. But I did it with very small use cases with saying, okay, we did this use case, it was successful, here's what we learned, here's what it needs to do, can this scale? And with efficiency. And if the answer was no, or we don't believe so, let's try another tool. And just iterated through it very quickly. I think we got to Anthropic within like a few weeks of like taking that process on. I will say very transparently, like I had to make a conscious decision as a business owner that I was going to invest in this because I tried to do the investing, like I'll do some and my employees will kind of do some. That didn't get me anywhere. Then I was like, I'll do it. That didn't get me anywhere. Then I hired somebody to do it specifically and that started moving the needle. And then when I paired that with the right AI model on top of it, it just 3x'd our productivity from there. It just took off. We did more AI and automation work in the last 3 months of 2025 than I did in the first 9.
Do you find that has a higher upfront cost, but then once you're dialed in, it's more of a maintenance level? Or do you think that you're always going to need to be prepared to keep kind of reinvesting in?
I think there's so much to do and there's so much change that you're always reinvesting into it. Okay. I find that could I reinvest as fast as I am right now? Like the first automation we did with AI moved the needle efficiency-wise, operationally, and then it continues to snowball. And the cycle of producing automations and improvements into the company is going faster and faster. Okay. And I'm seeing the leverage, so I don't feel like it's a wasted investment. Sure. And it's not scaling, like for every improvement I get, I got to spend more money. It's fractionally, I
can share where, I definitely side-by-sided Copilot and OpenAI. Both of them were paid tenants temporarily to explore, right? And I was working with Foster to figure out what I liked. I ended up loving OpenAI out of the gate I liked its responses. It's kind of sick to think of it as you were saying it, or like as like a human, but like I just liked the way that it interacted with me better, right? I liked the way that it learned. But I definitely would parallel. I would have a challenge or an issue, and I would feed it both in parallel, side by side, and I just kind of started exploring which way I liked it better. And then I realized the more that I leaned into one, that's where you're talking about the training it, because I definitely give it feedback, like I don't like that answer, or like I actually ask it and challenge it. Sometimes I was like, show me your sources, like cite how did you come to this conclusion, step me through it. And like it's important to understand how it's thinking for you in order to help tailor the responses better. So there's often times where I ask it and I do give it feedback, like that's incorrect, why did you come to this conclusion? And then I say next time do it this way. I was using OpenAI for maybe 6 months, so I felt like I was starting to use it heavily, and I was always getting more and more impressed with the answers that it was giving me because I was giving it more. And then even at one point, because you know how there's a section in it, you may know that you can tailor how you like your responses, you tell it also creepily a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
After 6 months of working with it, I was curious, and it was like one of those like BuzzFeed quizzes. I was like, what do you know about me? Like, tell me how I am and how I interact with you. And I literally had it rewrite me how I wanted to interface. It was like, you like concise responses. You are to the point. You use bullet points to summarize complex items, right? And I was like, great, keep doing that, right? And so, you know, and then I even said this, never, ever use emojis in your output. If you give me one frickin' emoji, you're deleted, you're done. So I think that's, when you were asking about like it, like, and how I approached it as an entity, I think it's just working with it more and more, and you find out what personality you like. This again, Eric, sorry, what Aaron everyone's getting today. It's like when you're picking a shrink, like you just the one that vibes with you better, right? Like, so you want to pick the AI that understands and works with you, and that was at least my approach. So I want to see if Steve has any follow-up.
I was going to say I would actually ask AI which is the best. So see what it says, and
what I've been doing, and then I'm like, is this counterproductive? Like,
no, because like feed it what your problem statement is, and then ask for its interpretation of what tool is best for this situation, and then go from there. But you know, your usage of it is going to be different from your peer, and so on and so forth. So that's where you try and find that middle ground, right? So if it's Copilot is for the masses, great. Now you focus in on getting it to the levels that you need. If it's AI, OpenAI, you get the drift, right?
Yeah.
But I would actually ask it, like, that's what it's there for.
Give it the prompt though with that. So like in my default prompt, I have it set to be a skeptic, right?
Yeah,
like you're agnostic to the AI model, you're objective, you're like, we want to tell it the interaction we want, because AI will like self-affirm you based on what it believes you want the answer to be. And so you want it. You want to tell it to be skeptical or challenge my decisions, and give it a persona for that interaction. Say, for the purpose of this conversation, you're this. Like I just did it to buy a car. I know I said that earlier, but like I bought a car. I used AI to evaluate the product, evaluate the car, evaluate the deal, evaluate all the stickers, prices, and I'm like, at the end, I was like, talk me out of it. I can buy a car at the drop of a hat. I love buying cars. So
my lease is up next month.
So when you give it the prompt to be a skeptic or give you the counterpoint, it will give you a ton of things you have not thought about.
Yeah, for sure.
So
that was all super helpful. Thanks, guys.
Any other follow-up questions, use cases, things that you're doing? Any kind of comments or follow-up to what we were just discussing, giving it personality complexes? Kara.
I use it a lot because I'm autistic and ADHD, and a lot of times being neurodivergent, it can lead me down a path that nobody else wants to go down. So a lot of times I'll use AI to do that work that is a lot of emotional labor, and then I'm able to redirect my efforts in a meatier way. But there are some coworkers that we can have great conversations, but I sound like a robot to them in my emails, so I use the robot to make me sound less like a robot, and it works out really well.
Yep.
Yeah, but it helps me understand who my clients are, and I tend to feed it if I'm talking to a CTO or a CIO, I will feed it the sources to pull from, and I ask, what's Gartner saying right now? What about what's important to this type of position? And then it'll feed me back what I need, and then I can feed back what my product portfolio is, and then it'll tell me the approach to go about it to get them to see our product suite. It's really awesome.
Betta.
I love this question. Outside of
You have such a smile as you're asking it.
love it.
What's your question?
Because everyone hates it when people ask this question.
We're ready.
I love asking it. Outside of the outside of like the big tools that everybody hears in the news all the time, what's your favorite under the radar tool that you found that's made a big difference for you? A business application, personal application. Like I gave the example with Caitlin, Descript was the one that she uses for the podcast, and like as one tool that she uses that's like a non-mainstream, an indie tool, so to speak.
I mean, from a personal perspective, there's a calorie counter app that you just take a picture of, and it knows all the ingredients and can kind of articulate the.
What is it?
That's called Cal AI.
Yeah, just sold by an 18-year-old.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
16 years old.
Yep.
Wow.
$100 million.
Yep, exactly. So that's great because it saves me time outside of having to log every single ingredient. It kind of just summarizes it. Obviously, you got to tweak it a little bit, but
Does it
works
do a
great.
carb count?
Sure does. Yeah.
Damn.
No, so that kid built it while he was at school.
Yeah, high school, yep.
He literally just sold it
Yep.
this past it's like $100 million.
Yep.
Yeah,
Good on you.
Tool.
I have too many tools.
Great.
Top. No, I think I don't think I have one that's under the radar. For me, the AI is pretty much like Anthropic is on my phone. It's integrated into everything I do. And, if I were going to say, like, I guess maybe Fireflies, which is doing the meeting recording, because my AI can connect to Firefly's AI and be like, I think that bot's name is Ask Fred. So, like, I could say to my bot, I just had a meeting, get me the topics that I need to talk about or I need to follow up on, draft that email. It goes to Fireflies, grabs the email transcript, summarizes it, and does the work for me. And I don't think that's under the radar, but it's hugely helpful.
You introduced me to Fireflies, and I'm now trying to convince Foster to let me keep it. So that was a great one.
I don't really have any micro tools that I use. I was actually joking, like I wish, because I definitely used OpenAI for a lot of business stuff within our Charles IT tenant that has the integrations into my Outlook and email. I actually found, going back to the tool set, I used OpenAI for so long. Copilot I felt wasn't ready, but Copilot has really come up fast, and I am impressed where the point where I am now asking it, I said, I have to train a new account manager or a new me on everything because I put all my client items in projects within OpenAI, so like contextually I could ask it questions, or when I'm delivering a quote or something, it knows some of the I was like, I need high-level talking points on this concept because I'm sending it to a CEO, like what can you do that, right? So it starts to put everything in it, but I actually liked Copilot because now that I feel like it's more ready, the fact that I can link meeting transcripts, I transcribe all the calls that I'm on by default at this point, and my clients are very much used to it, but it's a click of a button where it knows, and you can make projects now within Copilot, so for all my clients it's there, and it starts to see the content in my SharePoint, in my Outlook inbox, in our company OneNote or OneDrive, so it became more contextually aware, and they're launching a new agent feature that should do more like co-working type stuff with you that I think is going to be really powerful. So I became impressed with it to the point where I'm having ChatGPT memory dumps files of basically like bios to fully export, really lengthy. Tell me everything I've worked with you on over the past year with this client so that I can cut and paste it into Copilot, because I plan on starting to move more to Copilot and leveraging that more. But
Have you seen the OneNote powered AI in Copilot?
Yes.
Where you can make in Copilot, there's like a notes section. So like I'll go to a conference, I'll make a AI enabled notes, and I can input screenshots, pictures, OneNote topics, talking points, do web research, agent web research right there in the UI, and it's all in one place. So it's like a mini project. but it's super powerful.
And one of the things I'm toying with right now is because I also have a partner in crime, Zach, who's our client success with me. So he comes with me to all the meetings, and he's the one who breaks kneecaps and makes sure shit gets done. So I'm saying that on recording. Thanks, Zach. But we are now sharing a co-pilot project where we have mutual clients. So we're sharing that project where my prompts and his prompts and info are now all blending together, so we can collaborate within AI on that client together, which has been awesome. So I'm interested to see where that takes him and I from a productivity standpoint. The point being, and maybe answering Betta's question, from a personal nerd out standpoint, I'm a huge weather, aviation, but I have hobbies that come and go. Like I just want to learn something, so I've recently had ChatGPT help me get into astrophotography. That wasn't...
I thought you were joking about that.
Nope. I also got really tired of my lawn person, so I've decided to become a professional landscaper, and I gave ChatGPT the persona of being a Connecticut-based... I actually had a service give me a soil sample at one point, so I just took that soil sample PDF, and I was like, here's my soil sample. You're now a professional landscaper. Congrats. And now it's trying to get me to sign up to be a LLC so that I can get my DEEP pesticide license so I could buy my own pre-emergent, but we're not going to get that. I might just call Eric. So anyway, that's where I've definitely, deep research is also great for like researching certain like cars or things that I'm interested in purchasing. So I leverage it all the time. I can't imagine myself now without using AI.
Oh, actually, I do have a very dangerous one that I did. But dangerous in the sense of like personally dangerous. I set up an AI agent through chat that my wife could ask, like, is Steve available? And so whenever she was like, do we have any plans this weekend? Are you busy? Are you traveling? She could just ask the bot instead of asking me. That was not a good idea. Don't do it.
She's going to need an AI acceptable use policy for your house.
For my house, yes. That was a lot of fun for 5 minutes.
Awesome. Kind of going around the room or opening it up, to Betta's question, but does anyone have any other favorite tools, whether you use them for personal or for business, that you want to share? Anything that's empowered you?
Oh, sure. Whisperflow. Making it so that you don't have to type all your prompts on your phone. It's product agnostic, so it's all on your computer and phone, and it literally helps when you whisper to it instead of saying it out loudly. Weird. I don't know how. I didn't look into it, but you can now write really detailed descript prompts, which is honestly the thing that's keeping us humans important. So you can have lengthy, well thought out, reasoned, experienced prompts without having to type it. And I'm a pretty fast typer, but not at like 200 words per minute. Right. So this has been really helpful.
That one is great. I use that all the time in everything.
It's actually helping me do work faster.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of annoying because like at your office and you're just like, do I really want to just talk in front of them? And like, I work at somewhere where I at one point had to say like, I am using AI people because like things are getting done a lot quicker. So 100%. Like, I think talking to your computer is way better than typing to your computer. So.
Until your kids start calling it your side chick, then it's a problem.
So I think that's not the topic of today's conversation, but just what children and kids and stuff growing up with AI and how that's going to, like AI parenting, like I have no idea what to expect from that, but that's going to be wild.
Don't even.
Any other, I had a business thing. I was actually going to tie it back to like the wearables because I do have a business use case that I use a lot from a scope of work perspective. So I often do walkthroughs, and I know Steve was talking about this, where you're saying, you tell them, hey, I'm wearing this device, but you were giving an example, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but you mentioned you walk around a job site, right, and you're quoting a job, or you're there to talk to someone about a job. So to have that, remember all the key details so that nothing falls through the cracks. At Charles IT, if I'm on a call with a client and we're scoping something with one of our technical solutions architects, I've also, for them, even though I don't know they're adopting it because they're like, Aaron, get out of here. But I built a scope of work builder where I was like, here's Charles IT's SOPs and standards on how we approach scope of work. Here's our brand standards, welcome. And that, output me this. And so you feed it all the context and all the info, all the meeting notes, and it builds a beautiful scope of work that your client understands. It can put it into layman's terms and be able to and I've seen an improvement, and like I think you saw one as well, where quotes are getting accepted faster because they're more consistent. They make more sense. They are better, feeding it through AI to be more consistent.
Well, the information sharing alone, especially if you have a team of people that are doing it. So, and your point is it hit a nail with me because my team would be like, well, Steve, you did the quote. what did you do? Like, what information did you use? Well, here's all the information. So when I started recording it and transcribing it and doing the pictures, my team members were able to say, oh, this is why we're doing it. I didn't have to do a whole interview session on like, why are we doing this project? What's important? What does the client want? Here's the entire transcript. Here's the summary from AI. We move into action a lot faster. And we actually turn that into scope creep. So we take the scope from the original scoping part. We started enabling AI on project management ongoing and making sure that we are achieving all the goals that were already originally proposed by writing the actual work plan inside of our system. And then as we get completed tasks done, it updates a summary. So all of our project management updates are now AI enabled so that the team can just work, but the project update that happens once a week, it's AI created, and they just review the artifact at the end with the client. And I've had a massive improvement. Like, my clients have really noticed, especially on bigger projects, that the quality of the content being produced and the accuracy and the detail is much higher, and they really appreciated it, which has won me more deals.